Okie doke. So on this vid here, we are going to talk about like kind of I think a good way to approach what I'm about to bring up is sort of like what makes the most sense, right? And one of the things we seem to forget when we're talking about these special factors and or special polynomials is that the very first thing we should always do before we factor anything is we should always see if we can take a greatest common factor out. That should always be like our first go-to, right? And the greatest common factor is when you can just pull kind of something out front and then have, the stuff left in the inside the parentheses, right? And then you factor what's in the parentheses and you're in good shape. All right, so these, I think the only way to do these is just to practice them. All right, so here's what we got here. We got 5x squared minus 45. Well, hopefully you recognize that, hey, there's 5 there and there's 5 there. So, well, cool. So let's factor that 5 out and see what happens. And a lot of times factoring is just kind of trial and error. It's just pull stuff out, see what happens, and if you can go from there, great. And if you can't, well, then there you go. All right, so let's pull a 5 out. So when you pull that 5 out, right, it means I just got to multiply it by x squared. It's minus, and then what do I have to multiply by 5 to get my target number of 45? 9. And lo and behold, what we have here is I've got a square number here and I've got a square number here. So this guy right here is, good old-fashioned difference of squares, right? And so because I have a difference of 2 squares, all right, difference of squares, I know how to factor that, right? And so you take the square root of this, right, and that's going to give you x, and you take the square root of this, that's going to give you 3. So we're going to have 5 out front because we can't forget about that. And then you're going to have your x minus 3 and your x plus 3. And basically your 5 isn't really doing anything other than just sort of chilling out there. And later on when we talk about finding the zeros for this, right, and the solutions and stuff like that, that 5 still isn't going to really factor in any way. No pun intended. It just doesn't matter. But we had to pull it out so that we could make this work. Okay, so that's our greatest common factor, and that's the big thing we want to remember here is our GCF. All right, now on this one, our greatest common factor isn't a number because 16 and 250 don't really have anything in common. All right, 250 is not divisible by 4. I mean, they're both divisible by 2, and you could monkey around with them that way. But it makes the most sense to basically, let's say, well, actually they are both divisible by 2. So let's pull a 2 out, right? But you know what also we're going to pull out? We're also going to pull out some z's, right? We got 5 here, we got 2 here. So what's the largest number of z's we can pull out? Well, we can pull out 2 of them. So let's pull out 2 along with our number 2, right? So we got 2z squared is what we're factoring out. And so when I do that, I get 8z cubed. All right, minus, and then if you take 2 away, if you divide 2 out of 250, you get 125, right? And then the z squared is tied up over here, so I don't have to put anything here. And now think about your list of cube numbers, right? So if I go back to that and I look at that, 125 is right there. So we are going to, and 8 is cube number as well. So if I take, my a is going to be the cube root of 8z cubed, and my b is going to be the cube root of 125. And this is the difference, right? That's the subtraction one. So that's going to be 2z for this, because the 8 is, cube root of 8 is 2, cube root of z squared is z. And then for b, my cube root of 125 is just 5, right? So what this is going to give me is 2z squared, not zz squared, all right? Let's try that again. So 2z squared, and then when I factor this, right, it's always a minus b. So my a is 2z, my b is 5, okay? And then we have a squared. Well, a is 2z, so if I square 2z, right, if I square that, that gives me 4z squared, all right? So we're going to put 4z squared here. And then we know we're going to have plus my b squared on the other end. Well, 5 squared is 25. And then this, because this is minus, this one's going to be plus. Remember, they alternate. All right, so if this is plus, and then you go 2z times 5, you get 10z. All right, and then we're done. So, and at this point, right, you would say, okay, well, good, we're in good shape, we've finished this out, but actually, I think we have just spied something else. And so, do you notice that this is also a square number? So let's see if maybe we have do we have possibly another thing here we can do? Well, if we did that, that would be 2z. If we did that, that would be 5. You multiply them, nah, it would have to be doubled. So it's not. So we are actually finished. But like I said, we want to, make sure. So it's always good to rather check and, be careful and be wrong in my case, but at least be safe, right? Because you were checking it. So again, hope this helps, and happy factoring.